All right. Looks like we're right on time. 2 minutes past the hour is when we would like to begin. So I want to thank you all for joining today's session. If you are here for prompting AI for better results, then you are in the right space. As a quick note, we are recording today's session. So, however, it will generate a link automatically after this session that will not work for you all. So, we will share the recording and slides after the session is complete directly with you. So, just be mindful of that. In addition to noting that this is a recorded session, please be mindful that microphones are not enabled, but we do encourage you to participate, share your questions or comments aloud. So if for any reason a question or comment comes about, you have a few features available to you. You can use the raise hand functionality during this meeting and in the controls, and I will directly be taking moments of pauses to stop and interact and check in with you. And I am able to elevate your experience so that you can share your question aloud, but you will be a part of the recording. So please be mindful of that. In the event that either of those do not work for you, or you just prefer to use our chat or Q&A experience, we have other individuals from our Planet Technologies team on the call ready to support me as I answer your questions in the chat or within the Q&A experience as well. So feel free to ask questions, share your comments and your thoughts during our experience today. So moving forward, now that housekeeping is out the way, I am Jada Cheek, an Evolve 365 learning strategist here to support you today. And I am grateful because I've had the opportunity to collaborate with quite a few organizations and helping them adopt, excel in elevating their experiences with Copilot. And so you all getting the experience you have today is a wonderful plunge towards the next steps in understanding and getting started with Copilot. And so, with that being said, of course, that means we have to discuss what we are looking at. While we're going to elevate our experience, that always comes with us making sure we have a foundational approach. So, we are going to look at AI prompting fundamentals first. And then we're going to elevate that understanding by giving you a few components and approaches and styles that enhance the experience when collaborating with Copilot, your AI assistant. From there, we'll exercise, meaning we're going to attempt these. I'm not just looking to do it alone. I'm going to share prompts in the chat. If you have Copilot and you are able to access it, I do encourage you to already have that up and running because why not do things with me? Give it a go, test it out. And then, of course, we'll share some variations and giving you some tips and tricks to walk away with for today. And that will be our session. Like I said, you can see Q&A is always going to be encouraged throughout, so don't feel like you have to wait till the end. We want you to participate and get the best opportunity you can during this experience. So with that being said, we're going to go ahead and kick things off. First up in the conversation, we want to make sure, like I said, that I give you all that you need about the foundational knowledge. And that is understanding that this is about safety. And we want you to note that the Copilot tool is going to be an assistant that is there to support you in your workflow. This tool is going to provide you assistance, insights, and help with recreating content, creating, rephrasing, all of these magnificent things, right? The good news is that Copilot, when you signed up with your work credentials and you get logged in, it does ensure data integrity and it applies within the same enterprise data protection. So all of that is going to be used across your M365 applications. So with that being said, the bottom line is many AI tools online and other ones that you may hear and all about, they do not protect your company's data. When you use Copilot with your work account, enterprise data protection applies immediately. You are now in an encrypted space. And so this means your data stays inside your organization's tenant and it's not going to be used to train the AI model. You won't see it going anywhere outside the space that it should not be in. And that's going to be super important as we know that is a deeper dive into this. It goes further and it's bigger than just you or me sharing emails and things like that, right? If your organization is a commercial business, think retail, healthcare, or finance, you most certainly have enterprise commercial cloud. For example, private sectors, higher education, things like that. They certainly have a cloud that typically we are all utilizing. And for government agencies or contractors, things could be different depending on feature availability. Of course, everything is going to be aligned with your organizational's compliance. And today we'll focus on the enterprise and commercial experience. So that is what we are going to specifically discuss. Copilot in this environment sits inside your existing M365 boundary. And that same boundary is already accessing and trusting your files, your emails, and things like that. So Copilot isn't a separate item that we're trying to add on or get you to utilize. It's not mystery. It's not sitting off in its own world or anything. It's just layered in. It's incorporated in the same way you incorporate utilizing PowerPoint, the same way you incorporate utilizing your teams and things like that. We're just adding in another tool, but it does have security. It aligns with compliance controls, and your organization already has those items in place. We just want you to test it out. So, in the commercial cloud, Microsoft does operate secure data centers around the world. That is not for you to worry about. They're doing that, they're handling the big things. Your organization chooses where that tenant is hosted. And the key takeaway here is just to understand that Copilot is honoring that same data residency decision your tenant already follows. So anything previously regulated, mandates, and things that you had in place is going to follow within the Copilot compliance. It all is going to follow system and follow foot, as I'll say. It doesn't suddenly move or find a random location. It doesn't suddenly need its own settings or anything like that. It stays within your M365 environment. Your IT team has already approved it. This is something that we have operating. You'll also notice that it is a part of some of the compliance items that are listed in our presentation. So as you can see, SOC, GDPR, these are widely recognized independent security and privacy standards, and Microsoft 365 and Copilot acknowledges that. They have built in these requirements. That means things like strong information security, management controls, all of that does apply. So independent audits through these SOC reports, alignment with the GDPR for organizations that have managed EU personnel data, all of that goes hand in hand. And I know you're like, these acronyms you're throwing out, you might have learned them or remember them from a while ago. That is fine. What we're letting you know is that if the conversation comes up, if you are like, oh, I had questions about how that all aligns, it is here. Encryption and all of that is in transit at rest. And anytime Copilot is accessing your organizational content, whether it's a Word document, a chat file, or anything like that, the data is going to be encrypted while it's moving between services and while it is stored on a disk. So your prompts, the things that you share with Copilot, I want to let you know that that is going to be all secure and you should be confident in your experience. And I hope we have the opportunity to experience today, or maybe you've already gotten started with experiencing Copilot. And so that is my question for you. In the chat, I am looking for a little engagement. I know we are a small but mighty group here in conversation. I look to ask you, how do you typically prompt AI? So you can use the numbers 1 through 5. And I basically want you to share, hey, I'm not sure what a prompt is. Maybe you're brand new to AI and Copilot. 2, I make my own prompts, meaning, hey, I just hope for the best. I ask Copilot a question, give it directions, and shoot for the stars. 3, I usually use the suggested prompts. So you've been using Copilot suggestions and letting it feed you its responses. 4, I am using both. You use the suggested prompts and you kind of filter in your own prompts when you're holding a conversation with Copilot. And then 5, I know how to craft my own prompts like a pro in all forms, suggested and my own. Just placing a number in the chat. I want to hear what your experience is. What are you doing? What are you trying? We have a 2, we have a 4, 2 and a 4 actually. I know, right? It's like, it depends. On a good day, I can be a 2. On a bad day, I'm like, where am I going to be? It all depends on the task at hand, right? Um, This is good. So we have a mixed crowd, and that is perfectly fine because I don't think anything about the experience of utilizing AI is going to ever be perfect, right? We're not going to figure out how to get the perfect prompt or hold the perfect conversation, as I'll call it, anytime soon. But what we can do is use our experiences to figure out what does generate the best experience and output. And so you have to go through all five of these processes, I think, in order to finally get to a number five. And it's so funny because no one said they were like, oh, I'm a five, I got this. I'll be honest, even if you guys ask me, I don't believe I'm a five. I don't craft prompts like a pro every single time. Um, that's just my opinion. Some people might say I do. My colleagues might, let me toot my own horn. But with that being said, it is all about trying it out. And I think those who fall in between the middle of these, you are in that process of figuring it out. And you should be. So since we're figuring it out, let's make sure we have that understanding of what it takes to understand that you are giving Copilot, your AI tool in general, a set of instructions. That is what prompting is. You want to be clear and concise in giving your assistants some guidance, more specific, in order to help them understand and respond with useful information, right? The AI model can only function as advanced predictive text, aiming to kind of like generate a continuation for what you've input, meaning what you've shared, the details and information you've given. So it could be as simple as the one we always say, which is summarize this text, summarize this article, versus maybe you give a example and we say summarize this in 3 bullet points, summarize this about these 3 sections, and maybe you know which 3 sections you specifically want Copilot to focus on, right? All of this is going to help you get to the main point, which is leaving room for clarity. You always want to have your instructions be loud and proud. And that's going to matter most because it's about your AI only seeing the words you type, meaning it only knows as much as you share. It isn't magical and definitely cannot read your mind, like I said before. Sometimes we think it knows what we're thinking, so we're just like, oh, do this, and we'll give quick, short instructions and send it off and hope for the best. But that's not always the best practice. And so being vague or being, quick can sometimes shortchange us, and we have to end up circling back and we have to reiterate or we have to refine our conversations with our AI tool. And so ultimately, our better prompts that we take the time to elaborate on always generate better results. And it does take some additional steps. It doesn't always come as simple as being able to get it as quickly. It comes with us having to use some core principles. And so to highlight what those are, we want to start with the idea of effective prompting starts with clarity, being specific in your instructions, making sure you share relevant background information because you have a goal in mind. I always say that if your AI tool could get it right on the first try, what would that look like? That should be the question you ask yourself in order to know what the output should look like. Because I hate to be disappointed that I've spent so much time because prompting does take time. And I've spent so much time trying to maybe get this prompt right, get this task right. And, still it's not meeting my needs. So I always ask myself, what's the goal? What's my purpose here? And even when you have a goal in place, sometimes there's limitations. Our AI tool can't do everything. So please know the constraints to defining the boundaries of whether what the AI tool can do and also to what your prompting experience is. Meaning, hey, can I give Copilot the constraint to support me in formatting, in structure, meaning telling Copilot specifics of what not to do, what to do when giving Copilot specific directions? That is going to be very pivotal. And then always the idea of iteration being key, refining your prompts based on results. You can always think it through. That is an approach of asking your AI Copilot tool, any tool, to basically explain its reasoning. Um, We want to have a hands-on approach. And I don't want you to take the first thing that Copilot says and run with it. So if you can pause, ask Copilot to explain how it came to this conclusion, how it came to this output, that will maybe allow you to then circle back and figure out, how can I adjust this prompt? How can I make it better? And so once you figure out what you're going to work to refine, it's going to be you considering now, hey, I know what I can do. I know how to consider my AI tool. Let me make sure I understand how now the actual tool itself may produce various outputs. And I say produce various outputs because, like we talked about, nothing is perfect. And I don't want you to think that even if you have the perfect prompt, that your AI tool still cannot be wrong. There's opportunity for that. And one of the things that we like to highlight is that your AI tool can produce what is hallucinations. And this is basically where they generate fabricated or incorrect information presented as facts. So basically, it's like talking a very good game and making it sound so believable. And you're like, oh, that sounds right, but let me double check the source. Yeah, because you'll need to. That is a hallucination. Probably the information is inaccurate, or maybe the information doesn't align with the prompt. It might not even be directly related to the directions, task, input that you have asked of your tool. So be mindful of that. And just also remember that unlike search engines, our AI models and their language, they do not retrieve verified data by using pattern matching to generate responses, meaning basically it is looking for real-time information. So just because it gave you something yesterday does not mean you're going to get that same response today. Um, if it was the example used yesterday, it's not going to be the example for the new prompt today. There is opportunity for Copilot to switch up its response each and every time. And that is why you're going to always verify your AI tool's results and its output. It's always important for you to just evaluate anything that sounds convincing, and you're seeing that, like, hey, what took place here? Double check that. And one of the things you can do is you can always use Copilot as well, or your AI tool as well, to basically say, hey, I want to know where these references, where this information was pulled from. Copilot gives you a source of information of where those where the resources came from, and you are able to verify and double check and look at that information. One of the other good little tools that I like about Copilot is that it does the list of reasoning, and you can also choose your model for pushing out responses for Copilot in a variety. So I'll actually highlight those. I didn't think about them. That's why I just sparked a little inspiration to me, but we're going to check that out momentarily, because after this slide, we'll head into our demo. So the last thing, it kind of goes hand in hand with what I was just touching on, is you being able to fact check and look at the sources that appear each time an output is checked. You always want to identify the source for credibility and making sure it aligns one with what the information Copilot is producing. So cross-reference anything, especially being that it is utilizing standards and it might align with compliance and things like that. We always want to also make sure there isn't any opportunity for bias, ensuring there's accurate evaluation in any output that our tool use. So be sure to look over and review and just validate all factual information that Copilot provides you. Some suggestions could be just as simple as verify this response against the latest HIPAA guidelines. You know, maybe we have the CDC website and we want to say reference the cdc.gov. Maybe you have a SharePoint site and you're like, hey, reference this SharePoint site as a fact-checking tool for what you are creating. Items like that allow you to basically circle back and have a backup to supporting you in identifying Copilot as a trusted source and also giving Copilot an example of where it should be pulling information from. Don't be afraid to tell Copilot directly what information should be included or where to pull information from, because that's a part of the process. So because I shared those just with you, I actually want to drop those in the chat of some examples, and I'm going to paste them momentarily, jumping over to you all. And so in the chat, you will see the prompt examples of, and we're going to call this fact checking. And so feel free to save these. I really want you to just have an example of basically what you can do to utilize Copilot as a fact checking. Of course, you all might have other links, other tools in your OneDrive, personal to your organization and things like that. But I want to make sure that you have the opportunity to prompt them correctly on how you could possibly take them back and double check them as a source and comparing them with Copilot's output. So with that in mind, we're going to try some things out. One, we're going to do a mini tour of Copilot. I'm not going to deep dive because we're here for prompting, but I want to make sure as I'm going through, because I told you I want you to experience it with me. I have some prompts that we're going to try together. I just want to make sure everybody knows where some things are. So let's head over to our Copilot Chat experience, and we're going to go ahead and get started. First thing up that I like to go ahead and get started with is one, we're going to be utilizing the Copilot Chat experience, and we're going to dabble a little bit in Copilot Chat for Outlook. So I am operating in my M365 browser. So for anybody who needs that website, you are going to m365.cloud.microsoft, and it should open up. I just encourage you to make sure you are signed into your M365 account for your organization and making sure that Enterprise Data Protection Badge is going to appear in the right-hand side. It is a shield icon, whichever you badge, shield, whatever you prefer, but that's going to be your opportunity to double check for security. So with that there, we want to think about our day and things that we typically do in terms of how Copilot can assist us with getting started. And so we are typically using Copilot for refreshing, refining, and getting started. And my thought behind this is one, two little things I like to point out is that when you click in this text box as a recent, it's not recent, but some things people notice, you get a drop-down menu that automatically appears, and that drop-down menu is going to show you your chat history. I always tell people that, yes, it's going to show you like the 5 most recent chats that you may have started with Copilot most recently. But when you click on these from this drop-down menu, it is only going to paste, well, not paste, but select and drop the prompt into the text box. And why is that important? Because people will be like, well, I have more than 5 prompts that I have recently used. Yes. I just want to point out your chat history is actually going to be off to the left. So your full chat history, meaning, hey, a conversation I had a week ago, a conversation I had 3 days ago, you might have 17 conversations in one day, and I told you that this text box only shows you the 5 or 6 most recent. So the text box is only showing you the most recent 6 items, while on the left-hand side of the navigation, if you want the full conversation, your chat history appears here. So just a little navigational tip. Copilot didn't take away your chat history. It just appears on the left. So please click over there to get to a full conversation, meaning you can click on these, you can open them up. If you're like, hey, I still don't see it, it's going to be under chats, and it has a little magnifying glass, and along with the caret symbol, when it's pointing down, it's closed. And so your chat history is hidden. And then when it's pointing up, your chat history is open with a list. And you can see mine is pretty lengthy of all the conversations you've previously had. And so you can go ahead and scroll through and start opening up those if you want. So that's my tidbit, because I wanted to make sure that if at any time you're like, hey, I accidentally want to go back to one of the conversations that we're trying today, I want you to know where to find it. So with me, I actually have a quirky little icebreaker that I want you all to try. Like I said, I know it's the middle of the day for some of you. We might be on different time zones. For some of you, it might be getting started in the day. But here's my thought process. If you want something to get your day started and you're like, hey, where do I begin? What are you typically telling Copilot? As you know, Copilot doesn't have the opportunity for our chat basic experience to operate into our calendar. But what we can do is typically, if you're anything like me, I make a to-do list. I use Planner, which is our other M365 product. I use quite a few products, right? And I'll make a to-do list. And so that to-do list can be very short and sweet, can be 3 things on it, but it reminds me that, hey, it needs to get done today. Sometimes we put it in our OneNote and it's unorganized, it's very chaotic. For some of you, it's very realistic. And so in the chat, I'm going to post what I believe is a very realistic way of basically prompting Copilot um, to helping you get started with your day. I am going to do this live, so if you want to go ahead and do this with me, you are more than welcome to. So I'm going to open up the chat area and I'm going to paste my first prompt in the chat. Um, and you will see, actually, let's label these. I would love for you to know which one is which. So I'm going to clean this up really quick before I send it to you. And the last one. And so I'm going to do this on screen, but like I said, you're free to welcome and walk through because I want you to get an idea of how this looks. Because it gets a little quirky and creative the moment you guys are going to see my first prompt. You're like, what is she going for and what is happening? So in the chat, you now have a starter prompt. And for me, it is going to look a little different because I did make my to-do list a little chaotic. And so I am going to now the prompt I shared in the chat, that first one. If you want to test it out, you can. I sent it even with some little action items. But we are now expanding on the idea of utilizing Copilot really quickly to get our day started. I want to highlight basically what is the experience of prompting Copilot for one, creativity into productivity. You have a few features that aren't utilized enough. So this first prompt asks Copilot to turn this to-do list into a game with levels. I don't know about you all, but typically in the morning time, I need some motivation. So with that being said, I gave Copilot a to-do list and it does have a lot of chaotic mess in here. You can see that it says email John back, meaning I forgot yesterday in parentheses. I have a description about working on some slides, not done yet. Basically, letting Copilot know a little bit in detail of some things that are on this to-do list, but either I can't remember, haven't been completed for a while, just giving Copilot some insight. And like I said, you don't have to give Copilot every single detail, but the moment you give Copilot enough to work with, you now have something creative and fun to work with, right? So now I have this well on game level gamification to-do list. And it looks like, hey, we've organized some stuff. One, we're going to call this to-do list the Forgotten Tasks Saga. And I think that's probably correct because I saw a lot of things on here that are either upcoming, behind the 8 ball that I kind of need to get rolling on. And Copilot has leveled them out. As you can see, it says, hey, how about you warm up with checking those emails and messages because it goes hand in hand. I had 2 items on here that were typically, we can say the same thing. I needed to reply to one person. And if I reply to them, I'm already in my emails, so I might as well check my messages. Copilot is now identifying that contextual awareness of how things could go hand in hand within your schedule, getting you some organization. And then when it's ready for you to move forward, you can see that it's saying, hey, we got to get advanced. My level 5 is going to be figuring out and finishing that important thing I forgot, meaning, hey, you need to spend some time and sitting down and going back maybe through some meeting notes, going through your team's chat, checking out what was it that you may have missed and overlooked in the last few days so that you can ultimately, looks like, get to my end game, which is having everything completely finished. Well, of course, no one wants their to-do list to always stay as a game, but it is going to be very fun knowing that, hey, I got to level up and this is how I'm going to do so. So, my thought is that, of course, I know you all are like, hey, it's cute, it's fun. What are we going to do to make it more useful? Well, you got to put it in place. So, one, I encourage you all to take that first prompt I shared in the chat, maybe update those tasks with some items that you really have to do after this call. After today's session, are there 3 things that you have to do? And see what Copilot gives you. I would love to hear what it names your task for today. In this next prompt, I then asked Copilot to prioritize this into a step-by-step plan. So you can see that now instead of me having a fun to-do list that is gamified, I now have a step-by-step plan of how much time I can spend on each of these items that Copilot organized into the to-do list. And it also explains why it is organized this way. Copilot gave a very detailed explanation, letting me know that, hey, one, we want you to not spend so much time in basically getting distracted, kind of, in my opinion. This is going to be fast, it's going to be low effort, and it prevents delays for others. If someone's waiting on me to respond, my emails come first, and then jumping down to those other items that I can spend much longer time with, as we talked about, 30 to 60 minutes, because I believe this is the idea of me trying to work on slides that maybe I haven't even gotten started on to begin with. So in that event, we now have made our to-do list more useful in figuring out how much time we can allot. And my thought is we are already I am on Eastern time, 2:34 p.m. And so after I get off the call with you all, will I have more than enough time to complete all of this, right? Or maybe it's just that I don't want to spend that kind of time doing such things. Do you want to give Copilot more details about what you are looking to get out of this schedule? So I'm going to tell Copilot that, hey, this is nice, but I want to turn this into a 30-minute sprint schedule, meaning it's the end of the day. By the time I wrap up, it's going to be 3, 4 o'clock. I'm only looking to share and spend 30 minutes into this schedule. So we're prompting Copilot now to go from creative thinking to being a productivity assistant. We're trying to maximize this to-do list in 30 minutes. And it says, hey, you got 30 minutes, but now this game that we created for you, it needs to be a focus burst. You need to go ahead and get serious, and it winds it down into a very much refined schedule for what can happen and take place in 30 minutes. And so what I like to share is, while one, this was creative and this was fun, it is going to organize me and give me very much a detailed outline of how I can get my day started. In the event that this happens next week, this happens tomorrow, I'm going to need to come back to Copilot and ask them to support me again on utilizing my schedule, maximizing it to its potential. So my question to you is, are you maximizing Copilot to your potential? Well, in this conversation, we had 3 prompts. And in those 3 prompts, you have one that you can reuse over and over again. If I scroll back to the top, the first one is a great example. While it's creative and it's quirky, I told you all at the beginning, I might want to start my day off with something that is very much engaging. You can hover over any input and prompt that you send to Copilot. And so I scrolled all the way to the top to see that first prompt that I sent off to Copilot. And you will see that when you hover over that prompt, you then get a mini menu. And this menu allows you to basically adjust and edit your prompt or make some saving options. So I can edit with the pencil icon. I can copy this prompt as is, use the ribbon area to save ribbon icon to save this prompt. We talked about reusing our prompts and returning back to conversations. At the beginning, I showed you where your chat history is. If this was a conversation you want to come back to, you could. Well, what happens when you're like, hey, I really like this one particular prompt and I plan to reuse it every Thursday when I know my week is chaotic. My mornings are chaotic. I'm always trying to figure out what to do next. So I'm going to say and click this ribbon icon to save this prompt. Well, it populates in a box for you to edit. You can add a name, and I'm just going to call it to-do list. And this is basically titling the prompt for you to access at a later time from your prompt gallery. You scroll down just a little bit, you will see that in a box below the title is the prompt, the actual prompt that we just sent to Copilot. So basically, it created a template for you to now follow and automatically select each time you access Copilot. So we'll click Save, and it is going to confirm at the top that it's saved to my Copilot prompt gallery. What is the prompt gallery? It is an area where you can, one, save your own prompts that you create with Copilot and come back here to reuse them and select them so that they automatically appear in the text box each time without you having to type them fully out. Meaning if I wanted to select this to-do list again, it is going to be one that I can click and it is going to populate in the text box. And this time, for example, maybe it's Thursday. Only thing I'm going to need to do is update the bullet points with new to-do items. Or maybe I'm like, hey, actually, I still haven't gotten around to these things. Or maybe now it's not John. Instead, it's going to be Michael that I need to reach out to. So you'll make the finer adjustments as needed, or maybe it's meeting notes that you're looking to use. Regardless, you'll see how the flexibility applies when utilizing your prompt gallery. So I've showed you how to add your own prompts to the prompt gallery from creating a conversation with Copilot, but we want to go back to starting a new chat in the top right, and this is going to take us back home. And this is going to be another way for you to access that prompt gallery. So for those who are like, hey, I'm accessing the prompt gallery, I know that there was recent updates where you can now see that, one, when you click in the text box, you see your prompt history. But for some of you, if you don't have too many conversations, I have a lot, you will see some suggestive prompts this way as well. So suggestive prompts will appear here, giving you ideas of how you might utilize these. Or you can see right below the text box, you have different categories. These categories do change each time you utilize Copilot, meaning this week it might say rewrite, or this hour it might say rewrite. The next it might say learn. Either way, these are going to be prompts that you can click or little keywords that you can click in order to see prompts that align with that specific category. This is also going to be the opportunity for you to click the ellipsis icon that appears to the far right of it. And that is going to bring you back to the Copilot prompt gallery from the home page. When you're here, you have the opportunity to review the suggested prompts that Copilot also offers you in a full view. So while it does give you a shortcut when you are on the home interface, on the prompt gallery screen, you have the opportunity to click the drop-down menu that appears right below suggested, and it gives you more in all of them to go ahead and select the categories you wish to see prompts for. So like I talked about earlier, it's learn. So maybe I want to go ahead and find prompts that align with learning. And it says, we've been talking about productivity. What are 5 to 6 ways to beat procrastination? That might be the prompt I select, and it would go ahead and do the same thing I showed you earlier when we use the your prompts. So if you notice, same layout as earlier when we use our save prompt. So this is going to be also the opportunity for you to always see the Your Prompts section. So Copilot Prompt Gallery holds suggested prompts from Microsoft, and it also holds the prompts from your gallery that you create. With those being housed here, you have the opportunity to access them anytime for your convenience and being able to create with Copilot. So we're going to go ahead and continue to demo out. With this idea in mind, we now have kind of gotten creative with Copilot, right? Giving Copilot the opportunity to create, show us a productive schedule. Well, since we're talking about schedule, let's open up what is Outlook. We talked about prompting approaches as our next topic that will come up in the presentation. And I'll go back in the presentation to reiterate them as we close out, but I want to make sure you have an example to follow. Something I always like to highlight is when you are using Copilot in Outlook, there are a few ways to access Copilot in Outlook. A lot of people are always like, well, when to use what and what's the difference? I don't know. You have Copilot that appears as an icon on the left-hand side of your navigation, and you also have Copilot that appears on the right-hand side as a chat pane option. The main thing you can think of like this is that Copilot is going to be something that you are able to access from the left side for general reusable help, meaning when you're looking to refine, draft, maybe you're looking to ask Copilot to help you create a status update or create a meeting agenda, then we would use Copilot from the left-hand side. This is a standalone chat experience. It's exactly similar to how we just used our M365 interface. So if you're trying to draft an email before opening it in Outlook Mail, you could do so. It's going to operate the same way. It's going to allow you to attach documents and emails. And if you want to use Copilot for maybe a specific email, you would go ahead and utilize Copilot Chat pane. What I can do is select an email thread from my toolbar that lists out all my emails. And when you select one and you have Copilot open on the right, it is going to focus in and ground and have context awareness on that specific email. As you can see, the suggested prompts are all aligned with me now referring to this specific email, meaning, hey, do you want me to summarize this email? Do you want me to help generate you a reply to this email? Do you want me to help you shorten and format and give you a clarifying message, a follow-up, help you create a meeting agenda, all in reference to this specific email? So while you can do similar functionalities, if you deselect the email from the text box, you can remove it and it becomes a general chat area where you can still give Copilot directions and insights. It is just going to be a smaller view. So that's why we choose to figure out which one is best for our operation. For example, right now, we're going to actually go ahead and utilize Copilot Chat from the left-hand side. And the first approach that I want to share with you that we'll highlight in this presentation is called the zero shot approach. And this is something that actually I like to start with because this is what we typically are doing. I always like to showcase what we do, right? And I say we because I'm just as responsible and just as a part of it as you all. We approach our AI tool with no details. We kind of just give it a task and we just say, hey, roll with the punches. And the model has to rely on now data, and it's basically making an inference off of what it knows. So I'm going to send this prompt off and read it to you. Draft an email to the team announcing a new project management tool, Microsoft Planner, that will be implemented next month. Highlight the benefit of the tool, provide a brief overview of the training session that will be available. This gives Copilot the opportunity to roam free. That is my immediate thought. We didn't give Copilot an objective, an audience, delivery. This is the opportunity for Copilot to now make an inference. And so you can see that it does so by formatting it based off of one, our verbiage. draft an email, and that's very good. It didn't create a paragraph form without a header and things like that. So the structure is there, but there might be key details we're missing. And so that's what we talk about when you are in your Copilot chat experiences. What can you add for clarity? And so a lot of the times we think clarity has to come from us typically adding resources, meaning you typically would go in and you're in this text box and you say, hey, I'm going to use my / key to attach a file. I'm going to use my / key to reference a specific item, right? But have you ever utilized Copilot for formatting, for structure? What if Copilot isn't following the structure you want? You're like, hey, this is nice, but I don't want bullet points, or maybe I want it to be organized like this. So we call that a one-shot approach. So what I just showed you was the zero-shot approach, where you give Copilot a prompt and direction, but you don't give Copilot any examples, any kind of thing to follow along and guide to in a positive output. But what if you give Copilot an attachment? What if you give Copilot a reference, something to follow along with? Well, if you do, just one in particular, we call that the one-shot approach. When you start giving multiple items, that's the few-shot approach. So this next prompting example that I'm going to share with you, and I'm going to let you see it. This is the idea of giving Copilot one, the prompt, and this time, instead of me giving Copilot attachment, such as maybe a file that was all about how we plan to roll out Planner, I said, hey, I don't want to give you the details about how we plan to roll out Planner. I instead want you to generate an email following a specific format, because maybe we already have the rollout plan and the details, but I have to also create a communications template. And that's what you can use Copilot in Outlook for. So I gave Copilot an example of how I specifically like my communications to be created. And that's going to be the one-shot approach. You give Copilot one example in addition to the prompt. It's super helpful. Instead of me sometimes always supplying it with information about what needs to be included, how about giving Copilot information about, hey, this is the format, this is the structure you should take. So you can see here that this time Copilot produced a very well organized template for me to follow. The subject of my email will include a little emoji for enthusiasm. I'll be able to include a header. The body of the text is now going to be broken down into sections where we have details. And then we're going to have a next steps about how my organization plans to roll this out, because we already had that, remember I said, as a template, as a different document. And then of course, when we're ready and we're saying, hey, need help in next questions, we're going to have a section for that as well. So that is our one-shot approach, considering our audience and thinking of how we can also offer to Copilot formatting and structure as an example. I want to pause here to see if there's any questions about utilizing Copilot for formatting and structure. All right. I'll take silence as golden, meaning we're like, hey, that's comfortable and that's confident. Let's go ahead and continue to test out what else Copilot can do. So not only can we utilize Copilot, right, for the structure piece of this, we can go ahead and take this over to wherever we might be going. So I did share with you that you have the opportunity to utilize Copilot in other places. So if I go back to my Outlook mail, that conversation might not be over and I might wish to basically use that email thread. Don't forget your chat history travels with you even in Outlook experience. You are able to access the navigation menu from each chat pane here, and you would be able to open up the Copilot chat experience and see what you created from the conversation history. You can see here that when I scroll to the bottom in this preview version, that Copilot asks me, do you want to edit and send? Meaning, do you need to make adjustments? So of course, I might want to make adjustments. So Copilot is now opening up a draft for me. I clicked new mail so to be quicker just because I know we're on time. And it was able to automatically paste that draft of that email we just created with Copilot inside of a new email. Of course, this might be something we share with our team so they can review, but now you have a shortcut to seeing how taking a one-shot approach where we had absolutely no reference, no example for Copilot. I'm sorry, zero-shot approach where we had no example for Copilot, and we elevated it by adding on what we thought was our template, and we gave Copilot a sample of how we want Copilot to organize our writing. Organizing our writing helped us lead Copilot into being able to automatically create us a new email for production and sharing out for communications. Of course, that's not the only thing we can think of. When you are also utilizing Copilot and accessing it from your M365 experience, I'm going to switch back over to this interface so we don't have to start a new chat. We have another opportunity to ask Copilot for its explanation. And so basically, you can get Copilot to share its thought process and step-by-step to its solution, meaning don't just let Copilot jump to the end of its output. So for this first prompt, I like to give you an example of us allowing Copilot to basically understand that there is a limitation here. So you can see that I am asking Copilot to analyze a file, and I said, do not provide any conclusions yet, but I want Copilot to answer these 6 questions about the file. This method of prompting is called chain of thought. It's basically when you ask your AI tool to detail its understanding. So Copilot is going to answer the questions, but it's also going to explain how it arrived to get this output. So while it might create charts, I should expect an explanation about how it created these output aids. It's going to create a graph, right? And I should expect an understanding of the accurate results that it produced in order for me to get an understanding of its reasoning. And then what I did was also let Copilot know, do not provide any conclusions yet, meaning I don't need a summary at the end. I don't need an overall recap or anything like that because we're just not there yet. And the reason why we're not there yet is because maybe I need to make sure that I can ask clarifying questions and also still go back to Copilot to break this down. So once Copilot does produce its output, looks like it is moving a little slow. I'll give it a second, but I have a backup plan in the event that it doesn't want to work. All right. So in the event that I thought this wasn't going to, I had a lot to share with you all. I did test this out earlier. So I'll walk you through what I did and let you see how Copilot produced its output. So this is the same prompt I just explained where I gave Copilot the 5 questions. Do not provide any conclusions yet. And I attached that file. You can see Copilot definitely confirmed, hey, here is how we got to the reasoning and explanation without any conclusion. You'll see here that the first thing I notice is that in our first question, for example, was calculate the total revenue and compare it to the previous quarter in a table. And you'll notice that it does that, puts it in a table. And in my second portion, it does another table, but it also breaks down in description of what I asked, meaning it goes ahead and it explains what is contributing to the changes from within. So throughout this, while they are providing tables, I'm also getting an explanation of the happenings in order for me to understand. While it does give me a coverage summary, it lets me know that, hey, this is not a conclusion, meaning this is not the final thought behind how this information was created for Copilot in your data. The thought behind me asking Copilot not to come to a conclusion is because ultimately you want to ask Copilot for clarity. And now I can say, based off of the financial health of the company, explain the primary factors contributing to. And remember, Copilot broke down sections. The first thing we saw was a revenue section at the beginning. And I want you to explain that. So now we're giving Copilot the opportunity to explain what the findings are and reflect where the company is headed in terms of direction. This is going to be super beneficial in the individuals who aren't numbers people and they need just a little bit more elaboration on how growth and things might be occurring in their organization. Or even if you're just like, hey, I don't do Excel, I don't understand numbers and things like that, you give Copilot the opportunity to take the driver's seat for you and give an elaboration and an understanding. And you can see that it is still going to follow that initial prompt where it's not drawing conclusions and it's not trying to prevent you from automatically closing out the prompt and assuming that, hey, this is the end of the thought. And that is going to be why we call it chain of thought, because we're encouraging you to continue asking Copilot for an understanding. So with this in mind, there are, of course, a few others I could possibly show you, but I want to make sure you know where they are in the presentation. So when you get a copy of this presentation, you can see more of these prompting approaches being shared with you. I showed you the first three that are here, which is the 0 shot and the 1 shot and chain of thought. But feel free to try out these other ones that are going to be a part of the presentation. There's no wrong way, just the different ways to approach and try these. And we want you to have a hands-on experience. So with that being said, I want to thank you all for attending. And if you could, on your way out, a poll will appear and you are encouraged to just give us your feedback about how today's session was. And if there are any additional questions as well, I do have an additional few minutes to stick around and take those questions. So thank you again for joining. We will be dropping our information for you to go ahead and contact us as as any organization. We have helped many with Copilot, and we want to continue giving the support and the knowledge that we have and pour into you all. So feel free to share with us and reach out to us for additional support. Thank you again for attending today's session. This does conclude our presentation.